Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark. It is hockey season. It is October 7th. We are 45 hours away from puck drop, and we got a big show tonight. We got to go through all the roster finalizations. We have an opening night roster. We know what the lineup's probably going to look like, and we have made our yearly predictions. And before I even introduce Clay, in the chat, if you are here, there is a pinned comment. It's also in the description. You can go put your predictions in as well. You have until puck drop on Wednesday to get your predictions in for the year. It's a lot of fun. But as always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Super good mood, Parker. I filled up my entry form. I know you've done yours. We got some bragging rights on the line, even though we never bet anything, but that's okay. The Canuck, Patrick Alvin, nice moves. Got a roster that is under the cap and 23 guys plus 2 injured guys. When have we done that before? I feel good. Now we got to just start winning some games, Parker, but I feel really, really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good, just sort of like the vibes going into the season, which is crazy considering their top 3 goaltender is out and their guy who was the heart of their third line is out for a few weeks to start the season. Yet vibes are remarkably high because obviously this team, played fantastic last year. They make a couple good moves this week. Projections are starting to come out from some of the models around the league. And spoiler alert, The Athletic has the Canucks at 4th in the NHL for standings projections this year. And keep in mind that's without Thatcher Demko for a month of the season. The vibes are at an all-time high going into this season. And I'm very, very excited for things to get going.
And that's the thing, Parker. You and we've talked repeatedly in this offseason, especially leading up to this season, how our expectations, our anticipation is being so good because for the first time in 4 seasons, you and I are actually going to be talking about, are they going to finish first or second in the division, which is pretty cool. But not just me and you, who are optimistic, good looking and knowledgeable guys. But you're right. It's The Athletic. It's the Sportsnet. It's the TSNs. It's the scores of the world. All of these NHL.com. Everyone's saying the Canucks. Some of them are saying top 5 teams. Some of them top 10 team. But they're all saying a shoe-in to make the playoffs. Hopefully everything. And that is such a far reach from anything that you and I have experienced in the past 4 seasons together.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we had expectations last year, right? A little bit, and we had picked the Canucks, to go out in the second round. I think was our prediction from last year, so that was accurate.
Yep.
I'm wondering, as predictions start to roll in, how many people have the Canucks going farther than the second round this year? How many people think that last year was a fluke and things are gonna, go the other way? And we can get some preliminary insight as you guys get your predictions filled in. I'll just look at the sort of aggregations as near the end of the show. And we can get a good little heart on the pulse or whatever you call that. Finger on the pulse. That's what I was looking for.
You get your heart on your pulse. I think you're doing okay.
It's where it's supposed to be.
Speaking of heart on the pulse, a lot of my heart is pulsing because there's 63 people in here already. Lucas, $5 donation. Buckle your seatbelts. My social rec club has some big news dropping tomorrow. That is awesome, Lucas. I cannot wait to see what news is dropping. I'll be waiting for it. And Shiraz with also a donation. Stoked on the season. Keep it going, Clay and Parker. So thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Shiraz, for your generosity already. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's 2 days away. I'm still checking for tickets and I was hoping they'd come down a little bit and they haven't, but we'll see day of. It's very up in the air, but we've got a lot to get to. Like I said, we had a few pieces of Canucks news this week. There was a trade, there was a contract extension, there was waivers back and forth. There's opening day roster. We've got lines. We've got power play units. We've got a little bit of everything to go over, and we've got about an hour to do it. By the way, we then have to go through all of these predictions that we've made because we have to get them out in the sphere so that way we can, be validated. So we're not making things up after the fact. And as I said, for those of you joining in as we go, there's a link in the chat, pinned at the top and in the comments or in the description to go leave your predictions for the season. I think I added a couple. There's even a couple more than there were last year. We got a little bit creative, obviously, with the goaltending questions. How many games is each goalie going to play? I almost put a PDO question in there, but I took it out because it was a little too complicated and it's hard to look up. So we skipped that one. But yeah, we got a lot to get to, and hopefully by the end, we've got some time for you, the people, so we can answer some of your questions.
So let's do this. Let's aim for by 10:30. We got to be starting to talk about our predictions, right?
Yeah.
To leave. Okay. That's our goal. That's our
perfect. Goal. Isn't it fun to not be in the off season and be like, wow, we actually got to like fit things in, not be stressing at the 10-15 mark on what we're going to talk about for the next 4 and 5.
Not talking about line combos for an hour for a team that's four months away from playing.
Yeah. All right. So let's go into some news for the week. We'll start there. We'll go through all the pieces leading up to the rosters being finalized. Then we will get to the opening night roster. And then, like I said, we can dive into, sort of previewing the season, we actually have, now that I think about it, we can't just preview the season. We've got a hockey game to preview Wednesday night and another one Friday night. There's 2 opponents we can talk about as well in the Flames and the Flyers. Cause hopefully by the time we're here next Monday, this team's 2-0 if we're lucky.
That'd be great.
So let's start with some news. First off, big trade coming down yesterday. Not big trade, but for what the Canucks are trying to do this year, it's a significant trade, and it's a tidy trade. 15 minutes before the waiver deadline yesterday at 10:45 a.m., Patrick Allvin announced that the Canucks have acquired Erik Brannstrom, the one who was compared to Erik Karlsson like 5 years ago a bunch, and hasn't necessarily panned out to that. Acquired Erik Brannstrom in exchange for Tucker Poolman with 20% salary retained and a 4th round pick in the 2025 NHL entry draft. So I think we're both in agreement. Let's start on the 4th round pick. Who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Good. Tucker Poolman, 20% retained. He was set to make what? 2 million, 2.5? 2.5. So 20% retained means that the Canucks hang on to $500,000 of that cap hit. The other 2 million goes to Colorado. It's sort of a win-win all around. Colorado wants to be as close to the salary cap as possible so they can go into LTIR and maximize their cap opening night. The Vancouver Canucks, on the other hand, do not want to be in LTIR because they want to accrue cap space throughout the building. They don't want to be over the cap. They want to be under the cap. So that way, at the time the trade deadline comes, they can use that money to add something greater than the sum of the parts going into the season. So it was sort of a win-win on both sides. The Canucks dumped that LTIR money. They pick up Erik Brannstrom, who they immediately put through waivers with the big glut of everyone else that went through waivers yesterday. And he passed. So the Canucks now have another left-handed defenseman to throw on the pile in the AHL. And yeah, they are under the salary cap because of that. Your overall thoughts on this move?
Massive win by Allvin, and really quickly, every little piece. Pullman, unfortunate that he got his concussion, but he only played in year 1 of his contract. The last 2 years, year 2 and 3, he wasn't around. The 2 million that we save now counts for 2 of those roster players that Parker, you and I always talk about that make less than $1 million each. That is 2 more players that you can now have on your active roster. Massive. The 4th round pick, you and I agree, after the 2nd round, really, those are crapshoots. Those are lottery tickets. Yeah, one may hit, and the Canucks have done a decent job of mining late draft, but generally that's the exception, not the rule. And then this Branstrom guy, some depth. Our extra defensemen right now are both righties in Jolson and Friedman. And we talked about this last show. Who's the first left shot guy that gets called up if Hughes, Forbert, or if Susi go down? And we were talking about Wolanin and Hirose, but now Erik Brannstrom shoots to the top of that list. So for all of those reasons, but I think the biggest one truly is the cap flexibility. 2 more roster players and still under the cap. That's massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the 20% salary retained doesn't matter for the season. It's just this season. And yeah, that pick in the draft, again, 4th round, 2025, maybe you've got a 4th liner in 2030, right?
Yep. No, sure.
Guess what this management group has been really good at picking up for cheap in free agency is depth guys, right?
Yes.
So it's like, wow, maybe that could be a Kiefer Sherwood one day. It's okay, well, we can just go get Kiefer Sherwoods. They're free, right? You're probably, there's not a ton of big star players in the 4th round. So let's not worry about that. This team's in a window now. Every single dollar matters. So for both teams, I think everyone's happy, right? Like I said, Colorado gets into LTIR and maximizes that while the Canucks can stay as far away from it as possible and accrue some cap space.
I'll
So I think
tell you
both of us. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Parker. I was going to say on my show last night, it was such a goofball. I saw one highlight of Erik Brannstrom going end to end. So I had in my mind, and maybe it's the whole Erik Karlsson comparison from 5 years ago. I had in my mind that he was this amazing offensive defenseman. And then a guy calls me out on my stream saying, Clay, he scored 3 goals last year.
Yeah. He was, well, when the Knights drafted him, 2017, like he was supposed to be the next Erik Karlsson, right? That was what he was projected as in that draft. He just never really panned out, right? I mean, he's played NHL games every year since 2018. But yeah, he's not a big point producer or a big ice time guy even, right? Like I think he had not a ton of ice time going into last year. So
sure.
It's a depth piece for the Canucks. 900 salary, 900K cap hit, RFA next year. Yeah. There's really no downside.
Parker, truly, when you heard the news, read the news, saw the tweet, however you found out, were you surprised or were you like, no, actually Alvin's pretty good at this kind of thing. And I'm not, what was your first reaction?
Yeah, no, I remember I was golfing yesterday.
Nice.
And I got my buddy on the golf course was like, "Oh, we got Branstrom." I was like, "What? Why?" And then I realized it was, in exchange for Poolman. And I was like, "Oh, that's just it just clears things up. Like it's just a good tidy move to open things up. Again, like 15 minutes before the waiver deadline, the day before you have to set your rosters. Like that's pretty, it's kind of down to the wire, but it's a good move."
And I know we'll talk about the guys that benefit from this, the guys that actually stay on the main roster. But I know last week we were talking about cap, we were talking about Demko and Joshua going to try and be on the roster, non-active, but their salary counts. Their roster spot doesn't count. But this whole Tucker Poolman thing was the big albatross or the big kind of gray fog, right? Because if with him, that's a waste of $2.5 million because this is one guy who is not coming back in projected 3 or 4 weeks. So really glad that Alvin was able to do something with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's that one. That one's good to have out of the way. And then 4 hours or 5 hours later, exactly, Patrick Allvin announces that the Canucks have extended Nils Hoglander 3 years, $3 million AAV. So that doesn't include this year. Keep that in mind. So they still have him at 1.1 for this year. And then for his age 24, 25, and 26 seasons, they will have him at $3 million each season.
Yeah, I think this is great. You and I have always talked about the Canucks don't have a lot of those middle players. You're either making $5 million or more or $1 million or less. There are very few guys there's a few now, they're free agents, but really the way of the middle class player is kind of diminished, the role of the middle class player. But this is it's exactly what a middle class player is. He's probably not top line material, but he's not best served on the fourth line. So by definition, he's a middle six forward, and $3 million for 3 years for a 23-year-old. Sign me up all day. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and you gotta take into account some historical context, right? You look at the Jay Beagle. Was that 4 years, $3 million a year? Yep. Keep in mind that's when the salary cap was like $12 million less, right? So percentage wise, this is about 25% less on the cap as that Beagle one was, and Jay Beagle was an old 4C, right? Nils Hoglander is a young left winger with some upside, right? He can score 20 something even strength goals in a season. And he's got the skill, and it's a great move because this year it could be a year that it could go a couple of different ways, right? He could underperform a little bit. We could see that happening, or not even underperform, but come back a little bit down to earth from last year. He had a high shooting percentage. But going into, this also could be like a breakout year for him, right? Like maybe he comes and takes Sprong's spot with Pettersson and DeBrusk at some point, and he's puts up 25 goals and 30 assists, and you're talking about a guy who's worth $4.5 million at that point instead of 3. So it's a good gamble, right? You're locking the guy up for a few extra years, sort of through this competitive window that you have. And it gives you a bit of that security. It's like, hey, well, we know we've got a guy who can play on our third line, can play on our second line. We can put him on power play too. And he's got that little bit of upside that he could get even better. And we know what that's going to cost us for the next 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And I think Hoglander had his 3-year ELC. $900,000, then 2 years. This is year 2 of his 2-year, 1.1 per million per season, and then 3 more years at 3. So we've taken the first 8 years of his career. You can come a UFA after 7. So we've bought one of his UFA years. We, Parker, have 8 years of Nils Hoglander for $14 million total throughout those 3 contracts. That is awesome. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. He's a good player, man. Like and it's good for him, right? He guarantees $9 million. Like if he does come down to earth, then, you know, especially for him, right? Going into a contract year and you're not playing with Pettersson anymore, potentially very much, right? You're playing with, you know, it looks like it might be Ratu and Garland opening night, for example. And, or if Garland's back, right? But yeah, it's the upside might not be there as much, but yeah, maybe the power play 2-time helps. So I think it's a good deal all around. It does sort of walk him right to UFA, right? You mentioned it buys 1 year. But again, this is the type of player that, you know, if things are going really well, you can make that extension happen. You got time to do it. You just got to hope that he just outplays it.
Yeah. Swervin Irvin, $3 for the $3 million per year contract. Thank you for that. A comparable for Hoglander, cap stats play. Well, for cap, $3 million. We don't have a lot of forwards making $3 million. It's either Garland at 4.95 and up, or Blue.
No, Heinen's the closest at 2.25.
Oh, okay.
But that's all UFA years, right? Like it's really hard to make it comparable, especially on the team. But
yeah. And
Irvin,
we'll predict the stats. That's one of the questions in the quiz or the predictions contest. So we'll give you our prediction of the stats in about half an hour or so.
Absolutely. All right. So all in all, I mean, let's do letter grades for those 2 moves. All right.
Okay.
So the first one, the Branstrom for Pullman in a 4th. What would you give that letter grade?
For everything it does for us, I give it an A-.
I was going to go B+, and I think those mean the same thing. I'm not sure on what the grading system works, but yeah, it's a B+. If you could have not thrown the 4th in, then it's an A, but again, who cares about 4ths? And then the Nils Hoglander extension.
Same thing. I'm A-, B+. I'll go B+ for this one.
Yeah, I think it's the same boat. It's very, like, it's hard to be upset about. Like, you look at the, you look at all like the ratios and everything on Twitter and the response on Twitter, and everything's pretty happy. Remember we were doing those that AFP analytics looking at their contract projections. They had
yes.
They had one for Hoglander.
Yeah.
And they were projecting at 2 million or 2 years. Sorry. So without the UFA year that they bought at just over $2.5 million a year.
Okay.
So you buy the extra year for an extra $1 million. That's totally fine to me.
Yep. That's good. I'm glad you brought AFP up. I don't even know where it is, what it stands for, but it's good to know that
they respond to the tweets, and it was there because of it.
That's awesome. Should we talk about the goalie that we got back to?
Yes, that was the next one. Our one last roster move from this morning. So the Canucks put Patera on waivers last week. Right. Obviously with the intention of carrying Sheloves and Lankinen for opening night. Patera had to go down. Well, Boston didn't have a goalie because Jeremy Swayman was holding out for a better contract offer. And there was all that drama about we talked about it last week. So they take Patera. Now the way it works is if you claim a guy off waivers and you end up not keeping him for that long, you put him back on waivers. What happened here is the Canucks were the only team to place a claim on him. So if any other team had put a claim on him, they could get the rights to him. They would just have to keep him at the NHL level. That's the whole point of waivers, is that if you've earned the right to play in the NHL and you get sent down to the AHL, other teams have the chance to put you in the NHL. Right. But since the Canucks were the only one to claim him, they can immediately claim him back and immediately send him back down to the NHL or to the AHL because he's effectively cleared waivers because everyone else didn't claim him. So the Canucks just took him right back, sent him down to the AHL, and we never lost him.
So actually, I'm really glad you brought that up. That I knew the part about the fact that as long as no one else claimed him, the Canucks would get him and don't have to put him through waivers. I didn't know the part about if someone else claimed him, they have to keep him up on the NHL roster. That's good info. Thank you. I did not know that.
So if the Canucks had claimed him and another team did, the Canucks would have to put him back on waivers to send him down to the AHL, and theoretically that other team would claim him. But that just sort of bypasses that project or that step.
Gotcha. I heard Patrick Alvin say today that Yuri Patera did, when his time was here, his first 2.5 month stint here, his first 3 months stint here, he really liked the coaches and the training and the setup in Abbotsford. So I think he was certainly looking forward to continuing his career here. And now, a cup of coffee in Boston. I'm not sure if they're going to do a video tribute or anything like that. I'm not sure if you even met any of his teammates, quite frankly. So he's back here now.
Yeah, I wonder what that looks like. Did he travel? I guess he would have for a preseason game, maybe. But
did he even go? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I wonder if they called him and said like, "Hey, we're probably extending Swayman, so we're probably going to put you back on waivers, and they're probably going to claim you back." But yeah,
that's
it's an
true.
interesting one.
That would have been a classy thing to do. I don't know if they did. Alvina even joked around. He said, "Well, Boston apologized," but I don't know if he was kind of tongue in cheek or if maybe they actually did. Who knows? But we have him, so that it just kind of pushes everyone down. Now it's going to be him and Tolopil likely battling for Abbotsford starts, while Lankin and Shilaus are up top, and then what does that mean for Ty Young? And then go back to ECHL, or he's not going to Prince George, right? No, it's got to be ECHL.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot of depth though. That's for sure.
Him and Branstrom, a lot of guys in and well, I won't spoil it. And one other guy in Abbotsford from today, but we'll get to that.
And it's about that time to get to that because is there any other news from this week?
No, that was pretty big. Those were the three big ones. I guess it's going to come in our discussion. Just rotating guys have hurt, right? Suter missed a couple practices, then now Garland's missing practices, and then so who knows what there's one thing to declare a roster on Monday. Who knows who's going to actually play on Wednesday? And I know we're going to get into that now.
Yeah. So let's do that. So the roster deadline was today at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, which means every team has to have their final 23-man roster ready to go. Now, two ways to do that. You could go 13 forwards, 8 defensemen. You could go 14 forwards, 7 defensemen. The Canucks have gone the 8 defenseman route, which is kind of interesting. I don't think we really expected that because I think we had sort of expected, hey, Juleson will be the 7th D-man, and then you'll probably have the 14 forwards. They've actually gone with the 8. So we'll run through the list. There's no huge surprises here, but a couple nice names to see make the team. They're in numerical order, which is an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. I thought there was some messed up lines for the first time I saw.
Yeah. Nils Hoglander, first line center. Apparently that's something must have gone really wrong. If that's the case. So we'll, lots of staples, obviously Besser makes the team. Garland, Miller, Danton Heinen, Nils Hoglander, Pius Suter, Elias Pettersson, Kiefer Sherwood, Teddy Bluger, Jake DeBrusk, Daniel Sprong. And then the two that were sort of iffy alongside Arshdeep Baines were Atu Ratu and Niels Oman. So they both make the big club, which I think makes the most sense over someone like Baines. Oman has, you can stick him in as a 4C if you need to, play him as the 13th guy at this point. And Ratu, played pretty well in the preseason and earned that spot, at least while Dakota Joshua was on IR.
Yes, I agree with you. And I believe Oman needs to clear waivers where Arshdeep Baines doesn't. So that's another fact. I know people are saying, how come you have Oman over Baines, but you can't just think of who you think is the more exciting player to watch or who scored in the last game. You got to think of versatility. Like you said, able to take draws, able to kill penalties. And the waiver thing is huge because you don't want to lose a guy for free when you're still trying to develop him.
Yeah. And you don't want a guy like Arshdeep Baines to sit in the press box every night.
Good point too.
Right. Yeah. You want him to play some games. Niels Oman, I think is a pretty known quantity at this point. Right. I don't think he's going to, suddenly become like an elite 3C. It's pretty unlikely. So I think he's a guy who you can say, hey, you're going to play as the 13th forward. You might get in once every week or two, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
So and then, right? Pardon me?
Sorry, are you going to the defense now or not yet?
No, I was just going to say, I think, and then obviously that changes a little bit once Dakota Joshua's back.
Yeah.
Which, it's probably everyone needs to clear waivers at this point that's left, right?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay. So they could go, who knows? Maybe at that point they switch it to 14 and 7, right? Maybe they send who we're going to talk about here in a second, Mark Friedman down. Yeah. Potential if they think that he'll clear waivers or if they want to put Oman on waivers. I guess that's an option as well because I think Ratu is probably more risky to try to get through.
Yeah, actually, Ratu's the only one. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I have a feeling that him and Baines were waiver exempt, so that's why.
Ratu is.
Yeah, he must be right because
So they'll either send him down when Joshua's back,
Yes.
or they'll say, actually, we want you in the lineup and we're willing to risk losing Nils Oman over that.
Correct.
Which
Correct.
I would doubt Oman would get claimed. Although, who knows? Maybe there's an injury and someone needs a 4C.
Yep. Agreed.
So that's the forwards. No huge surprises, like we said, especially with Joshua out, right? We talked about the battles at camp and seeing what that would result in, and we had always talked about, hey, if one guy excels, he can make the team, and Ratu sort of fit that billing, especially with Joshua out.
Yep.
So defensemen, this one we can organize a little bit. Hughes Hronik will be your first pair, most likely. Susie and Myers, no surprises there. Forbort, Desharnais, again, that's what we expected. And then your 7 and 8D are, if you had said there's going to be 8D, they're the two you'd pick to be the 7th and 8th, and that's Noah Juleson and Mark Friedman rounding out the defense.
Yeah, a tiny bit surprised that Friedman stayed up at the expense of another forward, but I kind of what you said. When you articulate like maybe Baines should get more play, 18 to 20 minutes in Abbotsford as opposed to getting in spot duty here. That makes a lot of sense to me, actually. And Friedman, I like him. He's a gamer, right? He just kind of low maintenance, hard to play against, but he's definitely number 8 on the depth chart. And he's a righty, but he can play on the left side, whereas Juleson's a righty who I think can only play on the right side. So yeah, you're right. For right now, the fourth pairing, so to speak, is Friedman and Juleson. And yeah, they're holding 2 extra D and 1 extra forward for now. And
it's interesting because they're both right shot D men.
Yeah.
Juleson and Friedman, which is interesting. Yep. But what I do like, and I think we saw Friedman play the left a little bit last year, if I remember correctly. It puts a little bit of pressure on Forbort and Desharnais, right? They were a little iffy in the preseason. We don't know. They're not really a known commodity. We don't know how much, ice time they're getting. If one of them plays particularly poorly, there's like, hey, we've got 2 guys who showed us last year that they can play NHL games. Juleson had a awful start. Remember last year? Like he was terrible. But by the 30 game mark and onwards, Juleson was pretty serviceable. He got flat-footed and caught in the playoffs, but that happens. But yeah, having guys like Friedman and Juleson who they're vets at this point, right? 28 and 27 years old. It gives us that little bit extra depth if someone gets a little bit banged up, or if you want to put a little bit of pressure on Forbort and Desharnais to step their game up.
And then no surprises, obviously, with the goaltenders, the 2 guys that will either be splitting starts or battling for starts, Shelovs and Lankinen.
Yeah, and based on what we heard, it sounds like Shelovs gets opening night, which I think is fair after his playoff performance last year. And it does sound like they will be splitting as far as we can tell to start the season, which I think makes the most sense, right? They're 2 guys who I don't think one's going to be particularly better than the other. Like I think statistically, Kevin Lankinen probably is projected to be better than Shelovs this year, just from an experience standpoint. But Shelovs has earned the right to compete for that job out of camp, out of preseason, and based on the postseason last year.
Sure. I want to address Kurt's point because he makes a good point, but I do want to address it. He says, keep in mind, this is all on paper, is cap gymnastics, not necessarily opening night roster. So Kurt, yes, you are correct. There have been years where, even last year, where they brought up Podkolzin just so they could take advantage of his potential bonus. I remember all this his potential bonus pool, get it. He had to be on the opening night roster. And then they turned around and sent him down the very next day before opening night. So yes, the Canucks have had a different opening roster than their opening night roster. But I actually think that this is just my guess, Parker. I don't know if you agree. I actually think this is the roster that we're going to see on Wednesday night, unless they somehow decide to bring Baines up for someone or for Friedman. But I actually think this might be the opening night roster on Wednesday night. So Kurt, I'm not talking down your point. I'm just saying that's a good point. But I actually think for this year, it might be the same.
Yeah, it's a technically true point, but I don't think that's the case, right? And every team, when they put out their, I think it even says opening day roster. Like everyone calls it the opening night roster because that's just sort of the term for it. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense to have sent if you're going to send Ratu down and pull Baines up for opening night, like it doesn't do anything for your cap or anything like that.
So no difference.
For some teams, there probably will be some moves being made. The only way that like the Canucks would make some big move is like suddenly someone has a setback and they have to go on IR and you have to call someone up. But I obviously we're hoping that doesn't happen, and there shouldn't be any reason for that to happen. So yeah, this will 95% be the roster night one of the season.
Cool. One other thing I want to bring up, Parker, I know we got to get to predictions pretty soon. So these are 23 players. Let's presume that Garland's healthy. So 23 players. You got 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, as you said, 2 goaltenders. That makes 23. But guess what? The Alvina's done so good at the cap. You actually add to this 2 more guys in Demko and Joshua and their salaries, and you're still $500,000 underneath the cap. And that's the brilliance of what they did with Pullman's move. Now they can accrue a cap space. Puckpedia actually added a new column today called Deadline Cap Space. So already they're predicting the Canucks will have at least $2 million of cap space. I did have one question for you though, Parker. They said that both Dakota Joshua and Thatcher Demko, both Friedman and Drager, said they're 3 to 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
We know that IR is a minimum of 7 days. We know that long-term IR is minimum of 24 days and 10 games. Correct me if I'm wrong. If Demko and Joshua end up being out for longer than 24 days, does that mean that they have to go on LTIR retroactively and then you lose all that accrual space? It must, right?
You don't have to put anyone on LTIR. You
Oh.
can. You're more than welcome to, and that allows you to go over the cap. But the Canucks don't want to go over the cap, so they're not going to do that.
So you don't have to do that. Oh,
you don't have to. No, they just say, hey, we'll just take the roster spot, leave the cap space as is.
Right. So the fact that they're under the cap, and even they're in a good spot right now. Yeah.
The thing is, you could put them on LTIR. I don't think it would have any effect because it would all that does is allow you to go over the cap by a certain amount, but you'd still be accruing the same amount that you're under the cap with their cap hits still present. So it wouldn't make any impact if they did put them on LTIR.
Right. I see what you're saying. Gotcha. And yeah, because they're already at 23 guys. It would be different if they had 22 guys, then they move one of them on LTIR, and then you can actually bring someone else in. But you're saying they're at 23 already, plus them included already. Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying. So the biggest thing for me is I actually made the mistake. I thought that once you hit that month that you have to go on LTIR, but you're saying, no, you can keep them on IR as long as you want.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Then that's good. Then that makes Alvin look even smarter.
Yep. Absolutely. So 3 to 4 weeks. That's the one thing we got to touch on. Dakota Joshua, Thatcher Demko, rumored to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. That would take you, let's assume the worst, 4 weeks. And let's be real. It's probably going to be more than that for one of them, knowing how our luck goes. 4 weeks would be 10 games at that point. So if they would return, let's say November 4th, the Canucks play November 5th, that would be after 10 games. So that's in theory 5 or 6 starts for Shelovs and Lankinen, 6, 5, or 4 for each of them, most likely. That's not that bad. If Demko comes back, that's maybe 6 starts that Demko misses, 7 starts that Demko misses. Obviously you don't have Joshua, but I think they've got some pretty good depth to cover for that. I'm not too concerned about that. That actually sounds like pretty good news for both of them.
Yeah, I think if I didn't know that Joshua was skating and you told me that, one of our best power forward is recovering from having testicular cancer removed, I would think it'd be longer than a month in the season. I don't know when in the off season it was, but for a month, that sounds pretty good. And for Demko, for all the uncertainty around his injury, a month sounds pretty good too. So I agree with you, Parker. If it's truly 3 to 4 weeks, and who knows if it is, we should be able to stem the tide until then. You think so? You'd hope so.
Yeah, I would think so. And look, if things go really bad and they're 4 and 6, which for this roster is probably what bad would be. I hope. Yeah, that's fine, right? There's a lot of time to make that up.
And then you and I looked at the schedule last week. There's no way they should be 4 and 6 after 10 games.
I don't think so. We were hoping 7-2-1, but even 6 and 4, I'll take. 6-3-1 would be better. We do have to get to predictions.
Yep.
But I think we should quickly, we're still here. We should probably run through the lines and what they're probably going to look like opening night. So we have practice lines from yesterday, which gets us pretty close. It looks like opening night, Elias Pettersson will be centering Jake DeBrusk and Daniel Sprong, which is pretty exciting.
It is. They haven't had a lot of chance to build a lot of chemistry, so maybe work in progress. but 3 definitely offensive players. And I was at the preseason game, Parkers, on Friday night against Edmonton. Really liked DeBrusk game. He's fast. He's smart. You saw he brought the puck in on that play that passed to PD, who passed over to Susie to score it. I like DeBrusk's game. I think he's gonna be great. Daniel Sprong, bit of a wild card to me, but that's why we're only paying him $900,000, right?
Yeah, he's good. Like, there's a chance he's gonna do something really cool or something really not good. And that's exciting, right? Stick him on that line with Pettersson. Let's see if they can make something happen together.
Yeah, let's go.
Second line, well, 1A, 1B, let's say. JT Miller, Brock Besser staying together, looking like they'll have Danton Heinen on the left side.
Yep, that's fine. Maybe a bit of a step up for Heinen, but I heard Sarah Sivian talking on Sportsnet 650 earlier say she loves Heinen's game. He's just works his butt off, doesn't complain, never has 2 bad games in a row. He's not the most offensively gifted player ever, but I think, well, I won't say how many points he's good for until we do our prediction, but I think he'll be fine on that line. And this is a one line that has skated together even in the offseason. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that tells a lot, right? Just being like a high work rate guy, putting him with Miller and Besser, who are pretty high work rate guys, like I think it's going to be a pretty tenacious line to deal with, right?
Yep.
You're going to have 2 guys in Heinen and Miller just forechecking hard, and you're going to have Brock Besser hopefully sneaking into some soft spots on the ice.
Sure.
Third line skated yesterday as Hoglander, Ratu, and Suter. Now, I think we're assuming that might become Garland instead of Suter there. It's a little up in the air because then the third line was Oman, Bluger, and Sherwood. So do you move Suter to that Oman spot? Do you there's a bit of uncertainty on that one.
Yeah, and I obviously hoping for the best. Let's say Garland is good to go. You're right. I think Suter goes to the fourth line to play with Bluger and Sherwood, like you mentioned. I think that's less disruptive than putting Suter in the middle of Garland and Hoglander and then kicking Ratu out. Then why did you keep him on the team, right? So yeah, Ratu between Garland and Hoglander. If everyone's healthy, then Bluger or Suter in the middle, probably Bluger, and then Suter and Sherwood. And that's a good fourth line to me. And then Nils Hoglander is the extra now.
Yeah, and I think that makes the most sense to me, is Oman being the extra. Like, just looking at all the names you've got there, like I would rather have Pius Suter in the lineup. Pius Suter was really good last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for this cap hit and his play style, I'd much rather have him in the lineup than Oman. And Ratu showed some stuff in preseason. And if you're going to keep him up, like you said, you might as well put him in the lineup.
You know what Suter's gonna be doing? He's gonna be watching Heinen like this the whole time because Heinen took a spot with Miller and Besser. So Suter's gonna
Absolutely.
That's my spot.
And then defense is exactly what we expected. We already sort of went over it, so we don't have to go through those too much. I do like Suter, Bluger, Sherwood as a fourth line. Like that seems very good to me for they'll play 12 minutes, 13 minutes, but some good penalty kill potential there too.
Yeah. And just look at the difference between the forwards now. And I guess we had Kuzmenko at the start of the season, Lafferty, Mikheyev, just completely different look now.
Yeah. Should we touch on power play real quick?
Sure.
Power play 1 goes Brock Besser, net front. JT Miller on the left, DeBrusk in the middle, Pettersson on the right, Quinn Hughes on the point. That sounds pretty good, right? You got Miller going down the left side. You got Pettersson shooting from the right. You got Hughes quarterbacking. You've got DeBrusk and Besser, Besser down low, DeBrusk in front. That seems like a lot of offense.
DeBrusk is a righty, correct?
He's lefty.
Oh, he's a lefty. Why did I think he was a righty? Oh yeah, what are you talking about? He's a left winger. So same as Horvat. Horvat was a lefty. So making the bumper guy who's DeBrusk a lefty. Maybe recreate some of Horvat's magic. Maybe, I don't know.
That's the way they like to play it, right? They like having Miller going down the left with the option either play it down low, play the tip, or if you can go quick down low, bump it up to a left-handed shot.
Perfect.
That works the best for them. And then power play 2 is a little interesting. So it went Hoglander near the net, Sprong on the left, Heinen in the middle. Now they had Baines on the right. I'm assuming that's a Connor Garland stand-in.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say Sprong, Heinen, Garland, and then Hronek on the point.
So obviously this unit has scored. It was Baines actually who's not on the team.
It's a nice goal too. Great pass.
Yeah, it was. So he's got a couple of them. So, and I think Heinen is going to really stir the that second unit. You got Hronek's bomb from the point. So we've joked about this. These guys got to be efficient, right? They get 30 seconds. They're just in the zone and just fire pucks at the net. No time to like do fancy passes like the first unit. Just go direct.
Yeah. You get a little bit of skill from Sprong on the left there.
Yeah.
And he is a righty, so they're doing that same thing, right? Sort of the downhill shot on the inside. And then Heinen, that's fine by me having him in front. Hoglander down low. We know he does some good work with the puck in the corners. He just spins away from guys, kind of like Garland does. Having Garland on the other wing, and then Hronek's got a good shot from the point. Like I don't think it's going to be super dangerous, but I think if power play one's not doing much, it's not like a complete waste of space to put those guys out there.
And the other thing I noticed, Parker, being at the game on Friday, I noticed DeBrusk's speed. Heinen, he's not like the tallest guy, but he's very lanky, or he just uses his body really well, but he has got a long reach, like not Carson Soucy long, but he's got a good reach. And I think that's why he may be such a good two-way player.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So that's lines. We've gone longer than we wanted to, but we had to go over the lines. It's, game one of the seasons in 2 days. So that should take us to predictions. Now, I will start off by saying the Athletics projection came out today.
Yep.
They have the Canucks 4th in the NHL in projected points. Do you know if that's on paper? Oh boy.
Well, I submitted it and I wasn't sure I'd know where to find where my submission went, so I wrote it out too.
I think it emailed it to you automatically.
Yeah, I realized that after I wrote everything down.
Fair. So they have the Canucks. They have Oilers number 1, which I think is fair for regular season standings. Maple Leafs at 2, which seems a little high. But they have so much like offensive talent that that does well on models. They have Dallas and Vancouver within half a point of each other. Okay. Dallas at 105.8, Vancouver at 105.3, putting the Canucks at a 95% chance of making the playoffs per this model. Keep in mind, without Thatcher Demko for a month. They also have the Canucks at a 63% chance of making it through the first round, a 30% chance of making it to the conference final, a 17% chance that this Canucks team is playing for the Stanley Cup in June, and a 9% chance that they win the whole thing.
I missed one. Sorry, do that again. 95 playoffs.
63 to win round 1, 30 to win round 2, 17 30 to win round 3, 9 to win the cup.
Thank you.
That's 1 in 11.
9 is good.
9 is good. I'll take it. Now, the Oilers are at 21.
Okay. Wait, so they're giving 2 Pacific teams from the same division a 30% chance of winning the cup?
Pretty much, yeah, because everyone else, like Leafs are 9, Stars are 10, Florida's 9, Carolina's 8, Colorado's 4. Like the Canucks are their top team. They're a true contender.
Love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. All right, let's go into predictions, folks. There's over 200 of you in here. Thank you all for joining. Hit the like button while you're here. Make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't already, there is a link in the top of the description to put in your predictions for the season. You have until Puck Drop Wednesday to put those in. It's also pinned at the top of the chat. I've got, how many questions are there? There's 37 questions. So this might take a little bit of time because I think I added a couple extra this year.
We'll try and be efficient. And before we get started, because I don't want it to get lost, thank you, Lucas, for a second donation tonight. We appreciate you. Here's your announcement. EA Sports and James Sobalski have donated the game to your gaming club. Sweet. Enjoy it. Let us know how good the game is. And thanks.
Excellent. Again, I paid full price. All right. We will go through the responses. I've got mine here. Clay's got his in front of him. Like I said, 37 questions. They're all fairly simple as they were last year. A lot of them are, season related stuff for the Canucks. A lot of them go into points that the certain Canucks will have, and some goaltending stuff at the end.
We have one PSA for all of you. When Parker and I recapped our predictions for last year, and 3 weeks ago on our show, one of us came in 16th, one of us came in 19th. So not bad, but not great. So if you want to do well in this pool, take what we are going to give you now, and then don't listen to us. Do your own predictions.
Yeah. You'll be slightly above average probably if you listen to us, but you will not win.
You'll not win. Not even
all
close.
Right. First question is the big one. How many points will the Canucks finish the regular season with? Now, I just said the Athletic has the Canucks at 105 points. Last year, the Canucks finished with 109 points. Clay, do they build on 109 points, or do you think they regress a little bit?
I got regress. I got them going 48, 26, and 8 for 104 points. 104.
I also have them at 104 points. It seems like a reasonable number, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think they're better than a 100-point team, and
Yeah.
I think they are. Yeah, like but 109 is hard to do, right? Like that was that's a heck of a run. So, and
Look,
especially without Demko.
Edmonds lost the pool already. Edmonds lost.
Yeah, Edmund, stop. You can't listen to us, man. Yeah, I see some 105s, 106, 110. Question number 2. This one, throw a little curveball in here. Taking that from above, how many games will the Canucks win this season, including the playoffs? So it adds a little bit of a wrinkle, because you could say they'll win 50 regular season games, and you'll probably be fairly close, right? However, adding the playoff wrinkle, right? Do they make the playoffs? Do they go all the way and win 16 playoff games? There's a lot of variance in that. I sort of took it as Canucks win maybe, around 48 games, somewhere like that. And I think they make the conference final. So I have the Canucks winning 57 games this year.
I took the same tact, 48 games, win 2 rounds. That's another 8. And I got them winning 2 games in the next round. So I have 58 as my total.
That's pretty good. Guys, don't pick those numbers. Last year, we were really low on goal differential. So this is, keep in mind, and I say this in the top of the predictions, all questions are regular season only unless they say otherwise in the question. So when we're talking about goal differential, I don't want to have to do the math in the playoffs, but the NHL.com website tells you for the regular season. So it's regular season only. Canucks goal differential for the season, which is goals for minus goals against. What'd you have there? We were both low. We were both like 12 last year.
Yeah. I basically went almost the same as this year. I took a Jovanovski, 55.
All right. I went 48, so I'm a little lower.
Okay.
What place will the Canucks finish in the Pacific Division? Now, keep in mind, it's a 2-horse race, right? Well, it's funny. I actually want to look at the Athletics projection. They have the Oilers at 1. They have the Canucks at 4. The next Pacific Division team is Vegas, down at 94 points, and then LA at 93. So there's a huge drop off from 2 to 3 for the projections, about a 10-point drop. So I'm assuming you have the Canucks at either first or second in the Pacific Division.
Yes, your presumption is correct, and I have them as second.
So do I. Yeah, Edmonton's just they're just so strong in the regular season too. So I think that's fair. I think that's what we'll see most people place them at. It'll be 1 or 2. Most people will probably get 9 or 10 points on that question. Whole NHL. Canucks, I put them against 31 other teams. Where do they place? I have them at 4th.
Wow. You said 104 points and that you think that's good for 4th?
It might be. I also think they might go higher than 104 points.
Yeah, that's true.
I can hedge a little.
That's fair. And I didn't say that to insult your intelligence. Rather, I know last year there were a lot of high scoring, teams with a lot of points, because there are a lot of sucky teams too. So I actually took those 104 points and I have them down at 9th. At 9.
Interesting. And I think that's not too crazy. Like, it definitely could happen. I think, it really depends on how bad the bottom of the barrel is this year. And I think the bad teams are going to be a little better this year. Like, I think San Jose's a little better. I think Chicago's a decent bit better. Anaheim might be worse. But that might help a little bit. Sure. These are ones that we've done.
So a bit of variance
every year. This is I looked. We have 3 of these from before. This is the 4th time we've done this. Longest winning and losing streaks.
Yeah.
What do you have?
I don't want to. Yeah, I actually got this is the only one I got right last year. So I stuck with 5.
5 for each?
5 wins. Yeah. 5 wins, 4 losses.
How many losses?
4.
I have the exact
4.
same.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
That's why we're good co-hosts.
Yeah, absolutely. How will the Canucks season end? Now, last year we both picked out in round 2 and we were both correct. I think they do a little better. I think we already said this in the games that they win. I think we both have them as going out in round 3 as our safest, safe-ish guess. I think it'll be round 2 or 3 because it depends where you hit. Edmonton, I think, is going to be the big problem, and Dallas is a problem too. But obviously, I hope they win the whole thing.
Yep. So I'm with you. Round 3 as well.
Okay. This is a bit of a fun question. Assuming the Canucks make the playoffs, who will be the starting goaltender in the crease for the Canucks in game 1 of round 1? Will it be Thatcher Demko, Artur Shilovs, Kevin Lankinen, or somebody else?
Well, he may get hurt in the game, but I'm saying Thatcher Demko starts it off.
That's my pick as well. It's really, it's so dependent on this injury, right? Like if Demko, thing is, I think if something goes wrong and Demko is out, I think the Canucks might use that trade deadline to go get a good goalie, right? That's why I put that other field in there. Because I think if Demko like actually has a bad injury, like, are you going to go in the playoffs with Shilovs and Lankinen, or are you going to go try and get someone, right, from a team that's maybe just outside? So that's why I picked Demko. I think it's a safe bet, but yeah, if there is an injury, I could definitely see them trying to make something happen.
I agree with you. Yep.
All right. We did this question with Pettersson last year on will they sign an extension before the regular season ends? This time we're going with Brock Besser. Will Brock Besser sign an extension before the end of the regular season? He is on an expiring contract, making $6.65 million. He's a UFA after this season.
Parker, I was 95% leaning towards no, because I don't know if he's going to have a great season. I want him to. And then I thought maybe the Canucks would delay their decision on that till the season ends. But then I just, as I started to think about it, and I know how much Besser wants to be here, I actually put yes.
So did I. I think the reason, I think this management group's a big reason why, because they seem to be they really like to have certainty going forward. I think going into the trade deadline, if they're going to go pick someone up, they will probably want to know if they're going to have Brock Besser next year, right? So I think they're going to make a push on that, and I think a decision will most likely be made, and then obviously they can revisit in the summer, but I think they'll have to make a decision before the deadline, and if they expect him to be a part of their long-term plans. And because if he's not, then maybe it's even more aggression at the trade deadline, right? You're saying, okay, maybe our window gets a little bit tighter. So that's something to keep in mind.
And I'm sorry my video is so bad. I don't know what's going on. As long as you can hear me.
That's all good. I was worried it was on my end because mine was bad at the beginning. But yeah, it's audio first. You're all right.
Yeah, no, I think it's me now.
Another question we did last year, same number of picks going into the season. After that trade yesterday, they traded that fourth. The Canucks currently have 6 picks lined up for the 2025 NHL draft. How many will they hold after the deadline? Last year, they got rid of 1. They had 5. Do you expect the same this year? Or will they have even more or less?
Yeah, I went net -1 as well. So I have 5 was my answer.
Okay. I went with 4. I think they'll get a little aggressive. Might have to throw in a 5th somewhere or something along those lines. So that's our sort of team projections, team wide. Now we go into the individual players. This is the fun part, right? How many points is each person going to get? Sort of like a fantasy thing. And we're going to start with JT Miller. Had 101 points. Was it 101 last year? Something like that.
Yeah, 102, 101, 102, 101, 101.
Yeah, either way, hit over 100 points.
I don't even know.
Hit over 100 points. I'll tell you that. I have him getting 94 this year. So a slight drop, but I don't think JT Miller is, he's had 99 and over 100, but I'm going to have him at 94.
He actually had 103 last year. Crazy. Yeah. I got him at 98.
98?
Yep.
Sounds good. Elias Pettersson. How many did he have last year? I've got it in front of me. He had 89 points in 82 games last year, and what was a down year, really, which is kind of crazy for an 89-point season. But we knew something wasn't right with him. How many points do you have for Pettersson this year?
Not 100, but the next best thing. I got him at 99.
I think he does even better than that. I got him at 104. I think giving him a real constant line mate and Jake DeBrusk for the season, I think that's going to unlock him a little bit.
Yeah. I like it. I like your optimism there.
All right. Next up on the list is Brock Besser. Brock Besser had 73 points last year, 40 goals, 33 assists. We're just looking for the point total. I've got him at 73.
Ooh, I have him at 65.
Wow.
Yeah.
That 40 goal total, I think could drop a little bit. But I'm hoping the assists come up a little bit.
Yeah. I like your guess is better than mine, to be honest with you.
Fair. Next on our list, Connor Garland. We know he's, maybe battling a little bit of an injury going into opening night, but we're hoping he's playing. Played all 82 last year, had 47 points.
I have him at 51.
I also have him at 51 on the nose.
It's crazy.
Danton Heinen is next on our list. Played 74 games for the Bruins last year, 17 goals, 19 assists for 36 points. He's had 33 in his career. He had 22 the year prior. He's had a 47-point season in his rookie year. I've got him going back up to 40 this season.
Parker, I have him at 39.
Yeah, I think if he sticks with Miller and Besser, maybe it's more than that. Right? Because he's just going to get those second assists. But yeah, I think a slight uptick in performance is fairly reasonable.
But no PV2 time as we talked. I'm sorry, no PV1 time as we talked about.
Right.
So
yeah, a little bit of power play 2 time.
There you go.
Sticking with the new additions, Kiefer Sherwood, $1.5 million, likely playing on that fourth line with Suter and Garland opening night. Last year played 68 games for the Preds, had 27 points.
Oh, I messed this one up already.
Uh-oh.
No, I think I went too low because I think he's actually going to get some second and third line time, but I went at only 29 points. I don't know what I was doing here. 29.
I have him even lower, honestly.
Oh,
I think he might stick on the fourth. I have him at 22.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'd like to see more, but
yeah,
I feel like I got to go. I've been going a little bit high on everyone. I got to,
even it
maybe they're going to be a little top heavy. I got to make up for something. Next on our list is third line guy playing with likely Ratu and Garland. Nils Hoglander, freshly signed that 3 years extension. Only 12 assists in 80 games last year, but 24 goals, all at even strength for a total of 36 points. This is a tough one to predict, right? Because 24 goals with a high shooting percentage, you're like, okay, he's going to get less points. But I think 12 assists is remarkably low for what he did last year.
It is. Maybe it doesn't pass. He's he doesn't have to earn a new contract, but me and Viper are the same. I had him at 38.
I'm going with 40, slightly higher.
Yeah. So you and Elfrin are the same. Okay. That's good. That's pretty much the same. Yep.
Excellent. Daniel Sprong next on the list. Another new addition, an absolute steal, $975K. Looks like he's sitting with DeBrusk and Pettersson on opening night, which opens up some possibility for offense, but he had an elevated role with Detroit at times, had 43 points last year in 76 games. I have him around the same. 44 is what I'm going with.
Yeah, I got him at 40.
Sounds good. Sounds reasonable. Next one, another sort of tough one, right? Jake DeBrusk, 40 points last year. Has peaked at 50 the year prior in only 64 games, mind you, sitting on a line with Pettersson and Sprong, some offensive potential, power play 1, just signed to this big deal. Do you think he has a big uptick from 40? Does he break his career high of 50?
I have him doing all those things. I don't know. I just have a sneaky feeling. I'll just say my number. I have him at 60.
I have him at 62.
Oh,
I think getting that ice time with Pettersson, if Pettersson gets going and they get some chemistry going, if we're thinking Pettersson's going to have 100 points or close to it, DeBrusk is picking something up there, right? Sure, Quinn Hughes will assist on half of them, knowing how that works. But DeBrusk might get a good chunk. That's a very offensive line with Sprong and Pettersson. So I think, 60-ish area, I think is pretty reasonable. And like you said, his best season, 50 points in 64 games, right? That's pretty close to that pace. If he can keep that up for the whole season.
Oh, this next one's going to be fun.
Yeah, these are the fun ones. So Ratu, here's some, you got to take some things into account. One of them, this guy's played 15 NHL games.
Yeah.
In those 15 NHL games, he has 3 points. He's starting the season likely with Hoglander and Garland, but he is waiver exempt. So when Dakota Joshua comes back, he is an easy candidate to be sent down. I don't know how many games he is waiver exempt for. I don't have the number in front of me because I know there's, once you hit a certain number of games, you can be waiver eligible. But as of right now, he's waiver exempt. So you got to take that into account. So take me through your thinking for this one.
It was exactly that. I don't know how long he's actually going to be in this Canucks lineup. I really don't. I think he's going to get a bit of a run at the start of the season, and we know, Parker, there's always more goals at the start of the season than things lock down as you get chemistry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, enough stalling. I gave him 8.
It's not very high.
No.
I was thinking the same, and it's funny because we've got like Ratu at 23, 12, 40, 41, 10, right? So there's such a big fluctuation. I have him at 12.
Okay.
Because I think maybe he plays 25 games. And then even 12 points is kind of tough to get to in that little time. But yeah, if it's the thing, right? If he's either going to be at like 15 or lower, or he's going to be at like 30 or higher, because he's going to have to give them a reason to keep him around. And if they keep him around, he's giving them that reason. He's getting a lot of points. So yeah, that's a fun one, a bit of a tough one. And some of the rest of these are pretty tough as well, because we're getting sort of the same idea.
But you make such a good point. Actually, I love the point you made, Parker. And I think we should repeat it. If he's not doing well, he's not going to play. So he's either not going to do well, and they're going to cut off his not doing well at 8 or 12 points, or you're right, he's going to be awesome, and then that you got to keep him in lineup, and then he's getting his 25 to 30. So I don't see him getting like 15 to 20 points. That's too mushy middle for me.
Yeah, I know. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, there's no. I don't see him getting 27 points this season. Like, that just doesn't make much sense. Based on that. Next one I have is also a little iffy, right? Dakota Joshua, had a little bit of injury trouble last year, although it was mostly from that fight, I think. He broke his hand. And then obviously there's testicular cancer that he's going through, but hopefully only out for a month. Mm-hmm. How many points do you think Dakota Joshua was getting? Keeping in mind last year, 63 games, 32 points, 18 of those being goals.
I'm actually saying about 60 games, 30 points, 30.
I have 30 as well.
Wow. Look at us.
All right, now we get to the D-men.
No.
Only 2 defensemen I'm asking for points, because we can ask for Carson Soucy. We had 12 points last year. That's not no. It's 6 points last year. 12-point pace in 40 games. So I don't want to ask you about. Actually, I think I did ask you about Soucy's points. Never mind.
Yeah, 3 defensemen you did. Yeah.
It was Myers that I wasn't going to ask you about points. But Quinn Hughes is first on the list. Obviously, Norris winning season last year. Elliot Friedman said this morning that he has Quinn Hughes as a sneaky pick for the Hart going into this season. 92 points last season, 17 of those being goals. His shot looks a little bit better.
Yeah.
Do you think he can go up from 92 though?
I guess not, because I wrote down 92.
Fair enough. I got aggressive on this one. I'm going 98. I think he gets really close. I hope he breaks the century mark, because that would be very, very cool.
That'd be amazing.
Next on our list, his partner, Filip Hronek, 48 points in 81 games last year. Didn't get the goal production we expected with his shot, but still racked up a good chunk of points at 48. I've got him going slightly down to 45 this year.
Oh my sheet says 45.
Wow. All right. We are consistent. Seeing some, 55, 42 in the chat there. And then the last one I'll ask for points, because apparently I did. Carson Soucy. We already said 6 points last year, 12-point pace because he only played 40 games. What do you think Soucy's putting up this year?
So I think
big shot Tyler Myers on his side.
I do think Soucy's got some potential. So I have him at 15.
I got 14. I think a lot of that's dependent on games played, right? I think he needs to play more games than 40 this year. All right, getting into some of the more interesting ones here. We're going to Tyler Myers, but we're not going scoring. I want your total penalty minutes for Tyler Myers this season. Last season, he had, I think, 77? The year before, 76. But that's an uptick lately, because he had, 49 in 2020 and 66 in 2022, 48 in 2018. Like, he hasn't always been a huge penalty minute guy. Do you think? What do you think of that 77 that he had last year?
Just like I'm getting older and slower, so is he. More penalties. 80. I got him as
I was
80.
hoping for less. I'm going 70.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Two more player-related questions, and we go to the prospects. Starting with Jonathan Lekkerimäki. How many NHL games does Jonathan Lekkerimäki play this year?
3. That's what I said.
I have him at 4.
See,
I think that's
as ludicrous as these are, I'm glad that you joined me in my ludicrousness. Maybe we're both smart. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. You look at the chat, right? Viper's got 8. Alfred has 5. Yep. There's a 20. There's a 4. Like I don't think it's going to be a lot.
Okay.
Next, Tom Willander. Now, keep in mind, he's playing in college, but when their season ends, if they want to, they can burn a year of that entry-level contract and bring him up for a handful of games at the end of the year. We saw it with guys like Hirose, where he played, 5? How many? And 0 is a reasonable answer here.
I'm just giggling because
anything more than 7 probably isn't.
No, and if the Canucks are battling for a playoff spot or number 1, I don't think you just insert Willander into your lineup. So I gave him 3.
I also have 3. Yeah, I don't think it'll be. I think 0 is probably the safest bet.
Yeah,
but I think 3 guarantees me at least 7 points.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, on to the goalies. Very interesting topic this year. Goaltending for the Canucks. Thatcher Demko, Lankinen, and Shelovs. I want save percentages for every single one. Thatcher Demko, Vezina finalist last year, coming off of injury, put up a .918 save percentage last season.
Yep.
I have him going down mostly because of the injury to .911.
Oh, okay. So a bit of variance here, a 5-point swing. I have at .916 still. I think he's gonna do well. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's tough, right? Because he's had .915s and a .905 and a .901. So there's there's a bit of fluctuation there.
Yep.
Same question for Kevin Lankinen.
Yeah, so he had 2 good years in Nashville, 1 really good year. I have at .910.
.910, that's high. That would be fantastic for a backup. And yeah, he did have, what do you have last year? .908, and then the year prior, .916. Not a huge sample size, but and then he had a .909 in Chicago and then .891. So 3 years at .908 or above out of 4.
Sam had .999 for Demko.
That would be
he lets in 1 goal.
Yeah, on 1,000 shots, that'd be pretty good. I have Lankinen a little lower. I have him at a .906, which I would be so happy with that. That'd be fine. And then same question for Artur Shelovs. I have him going at, and I don't know how many games he's going to play, and that's one of the next questions. I have him at a .904.
Wow, I'm really bullish on these goalies. I have him at .910 as well.
Wow. I'm just a little scared of the defense still. I think that's maybe a bit of my concern.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Your next 3 questions are all still on the goaltenders. And this isn't a question we normally ask because normally, starter will play 55, backup will play 27, some give or take 3 or 4. Right. But we know Thatcher Demko's at least out for 3 to 4 weeks, maybe longer. We know that the Canucks are carrying Lankinen and Shelovs, and we know they're going to have to send one of them down when Demko comes back. Probably. Right. I don't see why they wouldn't. I want the split on games played between the 3 goalies. How many does Demko play? How many does Lankinen play? And how many does Shelovs play? Ideally, they add up to 82, although I guess they technically don't have to.
Correct.
But it would be silly if they didn't.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Parker. And I wanted to warn our dear viewers, if you've already submitted, I hope you guys took into account that this is game played, not game started. So exactly what Parker hinted at. If a goalie
I didn't think games played, it can be higher than 82.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. You went the other way.
I forgot, but I got to change it to start it.
no, but hopefully, the Canucks aren't pulling their goalies more than 2 or 3 times this season, right? Right?
Hopefully.
Or injury. So anyways, I'll give you all 3 so then you can match the numbers up. Demko, Lankinen, and Shelovs. I went 42, 17, 25. 42, 17, 25.
You have Shelovs getting the bulk.
Yeah.
Instead of Lankinen. I went the other way. Because my thought is they're going to send Shelovs down when Demko's back.
Oh, I screwed up. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
So I have Demko at 44.
Yeah, very close.
I have Lankinen at 24 and Shelovs at 14, which adds up
our numbers
to
are
82, which is dumb. But
I was dumb by saying that Shelovs is going to stay. So our numbers are basically the same with just Shelovs and Lankinen in reverse. Okay, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Total shutouts for the Canucks this year.
6.
I went 5. Close enough. Okay. Power play and PK percentage. Last year, the power play was 21.8%. So
here 22.7.
So round up to 23. And that's all we want. We want rounded up to the nearest, or not rounded up necessarily, but rounded to the nearest whole number. I have them around the same at 22 this year.
I'm at 24.
Wow, that would be very good. I think they were already like top 8 last year, somewhere around there.
They were actually 22.7, ended them at 11th.
Okay. And then penalty kill, I think they were at 79 last year.
That's correct.
Correctly. Which is, not bad. I have them going slightly higher at 80.
And I got 81.
All right. That sounds pretty good. So that is all of our predictions questions. There's 220 of you in here. We're about to wrap the show up fairly soon. So now is a good time, or after the show, to go over to that link, put in all of your submissions. Maybe there'll be a prize at the end of the year. I don't know. We always forget to do any planning. But we might try.
Yeah. And if we have a dead spot during the season, which I'm sure there will be, maybe 4 Nations time or whatever, 4 Nations face off, we will still take suggestions, not tonight, of what our little wager would. So Parker, I think you have beat me 2-1 now that we know that there's 3. I know I won last season, but I think you took the first 2. At least you took the second one. So we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll actually do something to each other for as a punishment.
Sounds good. I'm going to give a quick, so there's 26 responses in. I want to give a quick distribution on what some of those are. 27 now. They're coming in pretty quick.
Awesome.
One thing that's really interesting to me is what place in the Pacific Division will the Canucks finish? We have 1 response at 3rd, 15 at 2nd, and 11 at 1st. So most people think they're going to be top 2, which I think is pretty fair. What place they'll finish? It sort of seems to be a bell curve around 6th in the NHL.
Okay.
How will the season end? 33% say that they're going to win the cup. We like that. Another 14% say they're going to lose the cup final. So half the people say we're making it to the final. Yeah. Almost everyone says Demko is going to be the starter in game 1. 2/3 of the people think Besser will sign an extension.
Yeah.
JT Miller total points has a big peak at 98 points. 6 of the 27 people guessed exactly 98.
Wow.
Pettersson, people are, in the hundreds for the most part. Yeah. Besser, people are in the 70s and 80s. Garland, people are around 50. But yeah, a lot of interesting responses so far. So make sure you get those in.
Parker, Viper. I think he doesn't like, now that we've gone through and explained the questions, he or she, they can do a second thing, right? And just turf the first one, or just we don't care.
I don't know how to. I don't know if you can edit them. I don't know if I can allow you. Actually, I probably can allow you to edit them because you can do it after the fact, and that might break it.
No, Viper, just use a second email address and do another one.
Yeah, but if anyone else does that, you forfeit. So don't do that.
Yeah, we're being nice to you, Viper.
We don't want people filling the box with a bunch of different responses. All right. So that's our predictions. We've got, what was it? 44 hours now till puck drop.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is awesome. So we went a little bit over. Thank you all for sticking with us. It's over 200 of you. Like I said before, hit the like button if you haven't already. There's only 58. We can get those numbers way up. And subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you're new here. We just hit 2,000 subs last week, and we want to get that higher and higher and hit like 30K by the end of the season, probably. Probably not, but that's okay. Game 1 goes Wednesday, 7 p.m. against the Flames. Game 2, Friday against the Flyers. We'll be back here next Monday to recap those 2 games and preview the next handful. I don't know how many that is after that.
Florida
should be 3 games after that we'll preview, which is it's exciting. Season's about to start. Clay, anything you want to talk about before we end up here?
No, just excited. Thank you, Parker, for putting that contest together. And if you want more Parker, maybe before Monday, I am doing my 24-hour live stream this weekend. Parker will be appearing on it. We just haven't nailed down the time, but I'll publicize that. So make sure you come see both of us on the weekend over on my channel when I try and stay up for 24 hours.
Good luck with that. I will
Thank you, brother.
stop in for a short period of time, not 24 hours, and hopefully not at 3 a.m.
Love it.
Actually, maybe it will be 3 a.m. Maybe I'll go out and then I'll call you at 3.
Yeah, let's get drunk Parker on my stream. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yes. All right, folks. Make sure you follow us wherever. YouTube, ParkersPucks, Canuck Clay. You might see a video on my channel this week. We'll see.
Sweet.
We'll see. Twitter, ParkersPucks, Canuck Clay. You guys can find it. It's not that hard. Like I said, get those predictions in top of the description, pin in the chat. If you're listening on the podcast side, it's in the description of that as well. Get them in. And I think we had 67 responses last year. We want to get that higher. We're already at 30. I think we will. But thank you all very much for joining. Like I said, next Monday, 10 p.m., same place, same time. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.